Well, remember to get budgeting, wouldn't you? You're going there, Darkanyang Awabakal Ngurwa. Hello, friend. Good to see you. Today I'm on Darkanyang Awabakal country. I'm up here in Wyong State Forest, and I want to do a video today talking about some of my tips and tricks that I've picked up along the way when camping. Now, other than camping when I was a child with the family, I've been camping pretty much solo, self-contained, for about a decade now. And I've learned a few things along the way, so today I want to share some of those with you. And the first tip I'm going to give you is one that I was doing when I first started camping myself as an adult, and that was write a checklist. I do it generally about a week or so before I plan to go away, and then over that week I'd add different things, because you're always going to think, oh yeah, I didn't remember to put my coffee down on there. Got to have my coffee. I didn't forget. Oh crap! I forgot to put dunny paper. I better put that in. So that's something I was doing, was writing a list about a week beforehand and adding to it before the day. Come the day that I'm packing the vehicle to go away, I'll make sure that everything on that list is ticked off and is packed in the car. But in saying that, chances are you're going to end up with a lot of crap that you don't need. So keep these lists, and while you're away, just keep it somewhere handy and mark down how many times you use each item. So every time you do use it, just put a little mark next to it and keep that list at home. So when you look back after half a dozen trips or so, you can see which items you've used a lot and what items you haven't used at all. And then you can go through and start marking those items that you haven't used off the list and not bothering to pack them. Because after half a dozen trips or more, if you haven't used it yet, chances are you're not going to use it. And I have to admit, I've got things in the car that I don't use, but they're in there and I just couldn't be stuffed taking them out. What I would do with that list is I'd put everything into individual tubs, and I actually had a printout stuck to the inside of each lid to tell me what was exactly in that tub. For example, all my cooking gear would have my plates, knives, forks, cups, all that sort of stuff. Another one might have safety equipment like first aid gear, mosquito coils, bug sprays, this sort of thing. Just different sorts of stuff. A lot of the time when I found I was going solo, I'd only need to take one or two of these tubs. But if I'm going with a family, I might need to take all four of them. So that was something that I, with these lists, managed to create and managed to knock down a lot for what I do and don't need when I go camping. This next tip is going to be more so again for the beginner, those that haven't been camping, that want to get out and experience it and try it out. You jump on a lot of the groups on Facebook and social media or any other forums, and you'll hear the same thing. Buy right, buy once. That saying to me, I'm very much in two minds about. Like, I do understand it, but for those that are just getting into camping, that have never really been in their life, and would like to experience it and don't know if they're going to enjoy it, going out and spending a lot of money on high quality brand name gear doesn't make a lot of sense to me. As much as I love this, and as much as there's millions of others that do, you may not. You may come out here and go, yeah, look, this isn't for me, but I've just spent big dollars on all this gear, I should be loving it. Well, not necessarily. Not everybody enjoys this. My son doesn't. For example, he doesn't really enjoy coming out camping. My stepfather's never in his life been camping. My mother and I have, though. And Mum, I know, enjoys it. My stepfather doesn't know if he will or not. He's never been. He doesn't think that he will enjoy camping in a tent. More so, he's been talking about wanting an RV or something, but then he doesn't know if he's going to enjoy that either. So living by that buy once, buy right motto means that you're going to spend a lot of money for something that you don't know if you're going to enjoy. When I started out camping, I was in a little 6-man vestibule tent from Kmart. It cost me either $60 or $80. I think it was $80. And I had a single self-inflating mattress and a cheap Kmart sleeping bag. Now, I don't think I've got the sleeping bag anymore, but I'm pretty sure I've still got that mattress, and I definitely still have that tent. And this is, as I said, about a decade in. So that cheap stuff that you buy from Kmart or Big W or wherever may very well be all you need. Obviously, I've changed my setups a lot over the years, from having that tent and plastic tubs to store everything in and whatnot, and just sleeping on the inflatable mattress. I've gone through and I'd gone and bought a bigger mattress. I bought a bigger tent. Then we went through and we got the Pajero, and I started sleeping in the back of the Pajero. I have tried a swag, and a swag's not for me. And now, obviously, we've got the camper trailer, and the camper trailer is so luxurious. Compared to what I'm used to, the camper trailer is absolute luxury. But again, it's not for everyone. So look, when it comes to spending a lot of money on your first setup of camping gear, I really don't believe it. I think you should go out and you should just buy some cheap gear. Just go and buy yourself an inflatable mattress from Kmart or Big W or wherever it might be. Even BCF or something, they often do some pretty cheap stuff. Go out and buy yourself a relatively cheap tent. Doesn't have to be the cheapest on the market, doesn't have to be cheap Kmart gear. It can be something of reasonable quality, but go out and buy yourself something reasonably cheap. And get out there and enjoy it. And then over time you'll learn, okay, well, I've got this inflatable mattress, it gets a bit cold in winter, I want something that's going to keep me a bit warmer. In that aspect, you can look at purchasing, say, a yoga mat or something like that to put down as a bit of an insulation between you and the ground. Or you can look at self-inflating mats. That might be better for you. You might also find that you struggle to get up off such a low surface, which I do and my wife does. So having a double high inflatable mattress might be better. Or buying a stretcher. Things like that. And you can modify your camping setup as you go, but you don't have to be spending big dollars up front just to get out there and go camping. You really don't. So over time, as you find different things suit your needs and your requirements, you can then sell off the things that have not necessarily suited your requirements and your needs, but they still got you out there and they still got you started. You can sell that stuff off on Marketplace, Gumtree, wherever it might be, to somebody else that's getting started, or somebody where it does suit their needs. Now, on a similar note comes tip number 3, and that's buy for yourself. Buy what it is you want to buy, what you think you need. Don't go out and buy this product because somebody else has told you to buy it because it's good, because you very well may not need it. I'm going to show you a couple of products a little bit later in the video, and I'm not necessarily telling you to go and buy any of these, but they do have their place, and it gives you a couple of options and lets you think about what you want to purchase yourself. Again, buy for yourself, not for somebody else. The next tip I want to put through, tip number 4, is about bugs. Now, in my car, I always carry a large tin of mosquito coils. I can't stand mozzies, and I have a habit of getting attacked by them, even with the campfire going. Thing of mozzie coils. In fact, I'm burning one right now. If you grab the mozzie coils, these packs do come with a holder on the bottom of the stand. If I can get the... These packs do come with a holder on the bottom of the stand. However, that flimsy little piece of metal has a habit of breaking before you use all the coils that are in here. These little grabbers, I can't remember what they're called. I was given this one by Ben and Bex from the Adventuring Scots, and I use it all the time. I got that burning now because as soon as I sat down to start recording, I had a mozzie on me. Haven't had one since. These apparently are not very good for your health. Apparently, inhaling the smoke from one of these is equivalent to inhaling a packet of cigarettes. But, well, something's going to kill me, right? And they do their job. The other thing with trying to look after your bugs is your bug sprays, your Aerogard, your Bushmans, whatever it might be. I keep a spray bottle of Off in the back of the car, and I keep a little pump spray bottle in the door of the car. Especially when I'm going on a bushwalk, I'll spray some of that around my legs and my feet because it helps keep the leeches off. So I generally don't like to use that sort of stuff, but when it does come to leeches around my shoes and feet and bottom of my legs, I'll definitely use it to keep the leeches away. Otherwise, I don't use a lot of it, but it works. Now, the next part I want to mention, on the same note, in regard to bugs, and this is not just bugs, but it applies for wildlife too. See, often camping with people, especially in swags, I see them open their swag up and they'll fold the mesh back over the top of it, and then they've got access to everything inside that swag. But they don't do it back up. They leave it open, and I see the same thing in tents. I've seen the same thing people with caravans and annexes, things like that, where they leave their doors and everything open, and any wildlife, any bug, spiders, snakes, whatever it might be, can get into their sleeping quarters now. And this is something I was taught at a young age, is when it comes to zipping up a tent, grab the zip and zip it up high, or at least halfway. Don't zip it at the bottom, because even if you have the two zips close together at the bottom, there's always that little bit of a gap, and a snake can still push through there, small snake in particular. A spider can still crawl through there, ants can still crawl through there. You put it up a bit higher and it's a lot harder for them to find that entry point to get into. So it will keep your bugs out, it will keep your wildlife out. Always make sure your tent, your swag, whatever it is zipped up so that wildlife cannot get in. Even leaving the back of the car open sometimes, I get a little bit worried when there's goannas hanging around and things like that, that maybe one of them will climb up into the back of the car. It is possible. So quite often I'll keep the back of the car closed for that same reason. I might have the windows down, let flies and whatnot in, but it's generally pretty good there. But always, guys, to keep the bugs and everything out, keep your tents and your swags and everything else zipped up, especially at night. You don't want mosquitoes getting into a swag or something with you, because you're going to have a hell of a shit sleep. Another thing that does help with bugs of a night in particular is your lighting, and that will lead me into tip number 5, and that is lights. Less is more. You see me with my main camping setup, and I've got the 2 lights under the awning here, and I've got one on the shower tent. They're all switched together. They're only the cheap Kings ones that I've had for probably 5 years now. They're cheap, they're nasty, they do the job. What I do when I turn these on, I don't just leave them plugged in and go full power. They've actually got a dimmer switch on them, and I'll just move that enough for it to click and the lights to power on overnight. And unless I'm cooking and I need light, that's all I need. Just that tiny little bit of light there to be able to see what I'm doing. If you've got one that has red lights, for example, that will work a lot better to keep bugs away, so will amber. However, the red is the better one if you want to maintain your night vision. For example, if you like doing astrophotography of a night and you want to see all the stars, then red lights are the better option, because you can still maintain that night vision and you can still see what you're doing around camp. So keep that in mind. When it comes to lights, less is more. Fairy lights are beautiful, they look pretty, they throw a little bit of light, and to be honest, even if you just want to do that, which you've seen Jerry do that a number of times, then by all means, just do something like that. You don't need a lot of light, and to be honest, guys, I know a lot of people love having their doof lights, and I've seen people with big poles, 5-metre poles or whatever, with this bloody floodlight on the damn thing that lights up not only their campground, but it lights up the camp spot 100 metres away from them. And I've had that, and for me, that is just something that annoys the crap out of me. You don't need that much light, especially to a point where you might be annoying neighbouring camps. These 2 little ones under here, on the lowest possible setting, gives me all the light I need for pretty much everything. Either that or my campfire. That throws enough light to see what I want to do. So, lights, less is more. Tip number 6 is watch the forecast. And I'm not just saying, okay, is it going to be hot, is it going to be cold, or is it going to be overcast, rainy, whatever. Really look at your forecast, look at your wind direction, look at your chance of rain. If it is talking about wind and rain, what direction is it coming from? For me, for example, if in the Pajero, if I've got wind coming from the east, coming off the ocean, I'm not going to set up camp on an east-facing cliff top with my awning so that I can see straight out over the cliff. I'm going to turn the car around the opposite way so the car acts as a windbreak and I can have the awning still out but not getting pounded by the wind. If we're forecast for a little bit of rain, even if it's only 1 to 5 millimetres, I'll drop one leg immediately when I'm setting up camp so that as soon as it starts to rain, that water will run straight off. Setting up a tent as well in a similar situation. I had this in Pitt Town when I first bought my big 10-person tent. I'd set up camp facing the water and the wind came through, and it came through capturing the long side of the tent, which is a big flat wall. So when it's hit that long side of the tent, it's acted like a parachute. It's then pulled pegs out of the ground and broken 3 of the tent poles. Now this was the first trip out. It was not even 2 weeks old. I broke 3 of the tent poles from one bit of wind. The rest of that weekend I had to sleep in the car because the tent was now buggered. So, and at that time I hadn't set up the bed setup in the back of it. I slept in the driver's seat. So yeah, keep that in mind. Is always look at your forecast. Look if there's going to be any chance of rain. Is it going to get cold overnight? Do you need to actually have something to keep you warmer overnight? If there's rain or strong winds, is it a good idea to have a fire? Are you going to be able to have a fire if it's going to be really hot? Again, is that going to be a safe idea? So keep these things in mind. Always look at the forecast and plan these out, because the weather can make a big difference to whether you have a good trip and enjoy your trip or whether you have a crap one. And that's going to lead me on to tip number 7, and that's cooking gear. Obviously you take your plates, your knives, your forks, whatever else it might be. Don't take plastic knives and forks out into the bush. They're rubbish, and I've seen so many people just throw them in the campfire and it's disgusting. Paper plates, by all means, if that's what you want to do, and throw them in the campfire, that's fine. Plastics never go in the campfire. For me, I've got a decent picnic set and I've got proper, although cheap, cutlery from Kmart. I say cheap because they're the metal knives, forks, spoons, whatever else, but they've got the plastic handle, and they have a tendency, where the metal goes into the plastic handle, they have a tendency to rust out there. But for camping, for me, they've done me just fine, and it's a lot better than trying to use plastic or bamboo or something like that. A lot nicer, a lot easier. Now this is where I'm going to show you a little bit of gear, and I'm going to talk to you about the actual cooker that you use. Now to start with, here we have the most common style of gas cooker, the little lunchbox cookers. Now I've got to laugh because I get frustrated so often with these things that I always open them and they're upside down. I even went through and put a bit of grey primer, a bit of grey spray paint on here so I know which side's the top. Only to open it and find that I actually put it in the bloody thing upside down. So these little gas cookers, they're great, they're cheap, they're relatively lightweight, and they use cheap tins of butane. The problem with these tins of butane is, especially in cold climates, they leave gas in the bottom that you can't use. So on a day like today, there's a little bit left in there and I could use that. Maybe, might be just enough to boil a jug and make a coffee. But in a colder climate, that gas is going to waste. That's one of the big problems with these ones, is they seem to do that. These are also quite a big cooker for just a single cooker. So while they're good and they're convenient and they're cheap, they take up a lot of space, and these gas canisters are a pain. Second, we have this style. These are more of an older style, and I believe these are made more for camper trailers and caravans and things like that. And to be honest, because they do run on a normal gas bottle, I definitely use these more so in a camper trailer or a caravan. They come with a built-in windbreak. They come with 2 burners and their hose. But as mentioned, they do also require a gas bottle, at least a 2 kilo gas bottle. So while they're good, they can be a bit cumbersome and a bit of a pain to carry around. They are heavier than the lunchbox style, although they're probably more robust and overall do a better job, and they're 2 burner. When you sit down and look at the size of them, there's not a lot of difference, and One's a single burner, one's a two burner. Put a nice big frying pan on either of them, it doesn't really matter. On this one you can still fit a half decent frying pan and a small saucepan. So these ones come in quite handy, and this will actually be installed into my camper trailer once I get it finished off. But because of the size and the weight of these things and how cumbersome they are to carry around, even in the drawer system in the Pajero and things like that, I was keeping the lunchbox style cooker in there for quite some time, and I just got to a point where it was annoying the crap out of me. Every time I would pull over to the side of the road and I wanted to make a cuppa, it would annoy the crap out of me having to move everything else to get to that. So I thought to myself, what other options are there? And I started looking at hiking stoves. Now, you're probably straight away thinking your jet boil and stuff like that. Yes, and I was looking at the Kmart version of the jet boil, which I think is much better value for money. I've seen a few people that do have them now and they swear by them, and they'll say that they're just as good, if not better, than the full price jet boil. So price wise, the ones from Kmart, 50, 60 bucks, whatever they are, great option. And they use this style of can for gas rather than the tall ones. They're the same weight, I believe, 230 grams, 220 grams. One thing I've found since using these is they don't seem to face the same problem these ones do when it comes to the cold temperature. They seem to actually last a lot better in the cold weather, and you seem to use more of the gas. So if I'm not using a jet boil, what am I using? I'm using that. I can now keep 6 of these in my car and 2 of these in less space than what I can keep one of these. So all it is, pull that out, and that's your cooker. They're small, they're lightweight, they're convenient. Just screws on the top there quickly, give it a quick spin so when it breaks that seal of gas you're not getting gas everywhere, and that is it. Because the flames sit so much higher and closer to whatever you're cooking, it cooks, especially when you're boiling water for saucepan or for kettle, it boils it really quick. They work really well. When using the frying pan, you do get a bit of a hot patch in the middle, but I've done fish and chips in a frying pan. My frying pan I do find slides around quite a bit on here, but my saucepans are completely fine. They don't have the same issue. My frying pan for some reason does. They're a little more unstable. So on a surface like this, where as you can see it bounces around quite a bit, you definitely want to be very cautious. But on the table on the back of the car, or on a more stable table than what this is, they're great. They are really good. Just if you're using a saucepan or frying pan that does move around quite easy on there, just make sure it's on stable ground. Otherwise you may accidentally knock it off. And when you're mixing things, like for example if you're doing chips and you're trying to flip them over in the oil, hold the handle while you're doing it as well. These little hiking stoves were members price at Anaconda for $25. It's about the same price I paid for that. So I bought 2 of them, and they now live in my car, and if I'm not using a campfire, that's what I'm cooking on. For me and my needs, these are a lot better, and you can go the bigger cans if you want to. Now just quickly on the topic of cooking, if you're heading bush and you're planning to have a fire, even though you've checked your forecast and everything else, make sure you've got a backup, because something might happen. You might not be able to get wood, you might find the wood's wet, there might not be room to set up and have a fire, whatever it might be. There's always that possibility that you may not be able to have a fire, so always have a backup, and that's where the gas cookers, especially those little hiking ones, come in absolutely brilliantly, because if you can't cook on the fire, you've always got that to cook on. If you've got the vehicle set up with enough battery power and stuff like that and you want to run induction cooking, by all means go and do it. But just little gas cookers, they're so much nicer to cook on, I think, than induction. But my favourite way, obviously, is cooking on a fire. Now, last but not least on this list is your food and drinks. Always make sure that you've got enough food to get you over the time that you're staying. When it comes to drinks, honestly, water's your best friend out in the bush. I know everybody sits there, rants and raves, oh, you gotta have the beers. I often come out and don't have a beer when I'm camping. I'm not a huge drinker as it is, but you don't need alcohol to enjoy the bush. When it comes to carrying drinks, depending on what your setup is, whether you've got an esky or a fridge, however you're going to be carrying things, if you've got an esky, get a 2 litre bottle of water or a couple of them, put it in the freezer a couple of days beforehand, freeze them up, use that as your ice in an esky rather than taking a bag of ice. You can then drink that water later as it defrosts. You can use it to put your campfire out as it defrosts. And it doesn't break down into liquid spilt all through the esky. So therefore all your food and drinks and whatever else are not getting covered in water from the ice. In my situation, having a 30 litre draw fridge, what I like to do there is I keep 6 small bottles of water, and if I am drinking, I've got cans in there, I'll keep 6 cans. As I drink one, I'll replace it, I'll replenish it. So if I go away for a week and I've got a case of beer, I'll have a beer and I'll put a fresh one in at the back so that I know which one's the hot one. As I go through and drink that 6 throughout the night, by the time I get up the back, that first one's pretty cold again. It also encourages me to stop drinking at the 6 and not get myself drunk and make a fool of myself and whatever else, and not put myself in danger, especially around a fire or something. So doing that for me is a much safer option. I bring 10 litre water containers and I'll fill them up. I can fit 6 of them comfortably in the car, so I can have 60 litres of water with my water bottles. This takes 1.5, so once I've emptied one of them, I'll then fill that back up with the water from the container, and again I'll put that in the back section of the fridge. I know which ones are the warm ones. When it comes to your meat and things like that need to be frozen, always freeze them before you go away and try and pack them flat. So rather than just grabbing, say, a steak and just shoving it in a freezer bag and having it as a ball, try and freeze it flat. See, that will allow you to pack a lot more in a fridge. And if you're going on an extended trip, especially a week or something like that, space in a small fridge like mine, a 30 litre fridge, is of priority. So trying to pack as much food into a small space is absolutely essential. So try and keep your meat and everything frozen as flat as possible. If you can and you have the equipment, vacuum pack it, because that will help keep it fresh for longer. And even if it does defrost in the fridge or in the esky, it can still last you another week for some products at fridge temperature. So you're not going to be worrying about having spoiled food for a longer trip. Also think when it comes to other products like vegetables and things like that, do they need to be refrigerated or can it be stored just in a dry basket somewhere or something like that, or a dry bag? Think about how you're going to carry all your food and drinks and things like that. Or taking things like rice and bread and wraps. Wraps is one thing you'll find will last longer than a loaf of bread. It doesn't go off as easy, and they're resealable bags. They're also better for you generally. So keep all that sort of stuff in mind. Alrighty guys, that's it for my tips and tricks for camping. I hope you've found some really useful tips in this, and I hope there's a few things in here that can really help you to get out and enjoy more trips yourself and just simply enjoy your life better. If you're a beginner just looking to get out and go camping for the first time, or if you're a seasoned camper, let me know what you think of these tips and tricks, if there's any that you use out of this, and let me know if there's any others that you reckon other people would benefit from as well. If you've liked this video, please remember to leave a like. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Yamma Bujiri Murugu. Walk a good path. Yano, goodbye.